Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to the December 2020 edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Now, let's jump into the questions. Thomas Badkin asks, there is a story about orcs teaming up with the Imperial Guard and one of them acting like an officer. Yes, enemy of my enemy. Did he have a commander's hat? Off the top of my head, I don't think he did. He had a crap ton of medals, but I don't recall any hat, or cap, or helmet even for that matter. Michael Taylor asks, if Excalibur could be out there in the universe and Guilliman found it, would the blade find him worthy enough to use it? If anyone in 40k is worthy enough to wield Excalibur, then Guilliman, yeah, probably. If not Guilliman, then Dante definitely could. Terrorblades asks, people think that all the bad things that happen to the Lamenters is due to bad luck, but is bad luck even a force in 40k? As far as I'm aware, yeah, bad luck is still a force. As for there being like a warp entity who focuses on bad luck, if bad luck has to be put down to one specific entity, it probably would be Tzeentch, considering that Tzeentch is the god of fate. So, good luck, bad luck, good fate, bad fate, luck, fate. Tzeentch, yeah, I can see it being Tzeentch's, little side project or something. Asbates asks, are machine spirits and weapon spirits the same thing? Do they have a link with the Emperor? I'll be honest, I've never heard the term weapon spirits myself. I know weapons do have machine spirits. As to them having a link with the Emperor, I don't think so, personally. There's a huge debate as to what machine spirits actually are in the first place, Are they real entities? Is it just make-believe? Are they part of biological components or whatever? It's a huge thing that needs to be explored all of itself. Brent Feast asks, is it still possible for post-war Asuryani and Drukhari to be biologically related, or have the centuries caused them to effectively evolve into entirely distinct and incompatible species? Well, they are still biologically related, At the end of the day, they've got a shared common ancestor, if nothing else. The Drukhari and the Asuryani split off from one another only about, 10,000 years ago? 15,000 years ago? So, in a time frame of evolution, that is like a blink of an eye. At most, they've evolved into distinct subspecies. It'd be probably close to something like, humans and abhumans, because we know that Drukhari are in fact biologically distinct in the fact that they have a stronger and denser musculature than the Asuryani, but at the same time the Asuryani have full retention of their psychic abilities, whereas Drukhari have theirs atrophy. So yeah, they are still definitely biologically related. As to how much they diverge from one another, this is a debatable subject. Some say that they are not distinct enough at all to be classified as different species, some claim that they are. It's a huge kettle of fish. Do the Hive fleets have any known means of replacing a dead Norn Queen the way beehives do so for their queens, and if not, what happens to a Hive fleet when its Norn Queen dies? I assume that the Hive fleets would have to have a way to replace their non-queens because, at the end of the day, accidents happen, bigger predators happen. Yes, there's probably something that will prey on a partner Hive ship if given a chance, because there are big things in the void, void whales for one. As for what happens when a non-queen dies, I know this is touched upon in one of the Uriel Ventress novels, but I don't know which one off the top of my head, but if I had to guess anyway, just off the top of my head, it will probably mean that all the individual bioforms will revert to their baser instincts. Lacking the actual guiding will of the Norn Queen and the Hive Mind, etc., they will just become wild animals. Austin Horner asks, what theory do you find most likely for explaining Astartes' transformation into Mephiston and the powers he's acquired since? From what I know, this is actually answered in the novel Darkness in the Blood, which I haven't read, unfortunately. So I'd probably recommend just giving that book a read and it'll hopefully explain everything. Voice of the Emperor asks, can Astartes get fat? Yes, it's an extremely rare occurrence that generally falls down to a genetic flaw during the gene seed implantation process, but there are examples of fat space marines, the big one being, no pun intended, Hager the Mountain from the William King Space Wolf series. He's a space wolf whose gene seed kind of fucked up during the implantation process and made him a very fat bastard, but also very strong, hence why it was called the Mountain. Can machine spirits actually be friendly AI? Again, going back to earlier, there's a whole, plethora of different individual theories regarding machine spirits, so that'll probably be talked about when I get around to doing a newcomers video on that. Jonkin asks, If a demon is bound to a servitor, would it be a possession or a demon engine? Well, when a demon engine is created, possession is a fundamental part of the process, so possession will be involved regardless. As to it being a demon engine, I'd say no, because it'd be no different from saying like a demon possessing a tech priest, for example. Yeah, there's a huge amount of metallic components, but there's also a lot of biological components. The only difference is between a tech priest and a servitor is that the servitor has been lobotomized. Pentadeuce asks, is it possible for a group of orcs to worship the Emperor, and what would happen if they do so? I think this is actually touched up upon in Armageddon's Saint, because from what I've heard, and I've not read the novel, so, take this with a pinch of salt, I can't confirm at this point in time, but apparently there's an Imperial Guard soldier who has a mob of orcs under his command. He's managed to effectively make himself the alpha, somehow. So, if you have a human leading a bunch of orcs, you could theoretically make them worship the Emperor as basically being, bigger than, mightier than Gork and Mork, so hey, he beat up Gork and Mork, how tough is he, kind of thing, I don't know. As to what would happen, you get a bunch of orcs going for the Emperor, or something, or Emperor, or however you want to make him, Emperor makes it sound like a fucking baby. Zero Hits asks, if a company of Space Marines landed in Warhammer Fantasy, would there be anything that could readily challenge them before or after they ran out of bolt rounds? Yes, a lot of things actually. For starters, how about the endless hordes of undead that can be summoned by, necromancers or lich priests? Dragons, big dragons. Giants, a giant's going to be a tough thing for a Space Marine to put down, in either case. There's also demons running around in the realm of chaos and stuff like that. Chaos Dwarf Artillery, the orcs, because an orc is stronger than a regular human regardless, so you have a huge horde of orcs, or even the Black Orcs for example, they could probably overwhelm and beat a bunch of Space Marines to death if given enough time and resources. So yeah, there are plenty of things that could take on a company of Space Marines. Lucanon asks, quite a few actually, what are your top 3 plot holes of yours or extremely illogical plot decisions in the Horus Heresy? Oof, right. Rogaldorn saying that he had no idea that Vulcan was on Terra, despite the fact that when Vulcan arrived on Terra he gave Dawn a hug. That was a bit of a weird one. I have to say thank you Dan Abnett for actually referencing that gaffe. What else? Right. That's one off the top of my head. The other major plot hole will probably be in regards to John Grammaticus, who according to Legion was made into a perpetual following the Battle of Anatol Hive by the Cabal, but apparently he was also running around 20th century Kabul. So that's 2, because that didn't make sense. Off the top of my head I can't think of any more, but have those 2 at the very least. Would you ship Barabbas Dantiuk with Alexis Pollux? Yes, everyone already does. Is it ever explained how perpetuals regenerate? Not really, no. So just talk up to magic or soft sci-fi. And finally, Griffin of Might asks, it's been said that each first founding legion has a counterpart amongst the traitors, such as the Iron Warriors and Imperial Fists, and Wordbearers and the Ultramarines. What other chapters are counterparts to one another? Well, there's the Raven Guard and Night Lords, because the Raven Guard were originally Terror Troops just like the Night Lords. You could argue Space Wolves and World Eaters, Shock Assault Troops. You could probably argue Sons of Horus and the Dark Angels, because they were like, the famed elite, we're the best pompous bastards. Arguably. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But those are some of our examples anyway. Could Belisarius Core found a loophole in Gilliman's order not to use Traitor Gene Seed by finding loyalist chapters that already use Traitor Gene Seed and work from there? Well, if you use a chapter that's already using Traitor Gene Seed and use the Traitor Gene Seed, you're still using Traitor Gene Seed, aren't you? If anything, Gilliman will probably say use a close approximation. Like, if you've got an Iron Warrior, then use Imperial Fist Gene Seed. If you've got a Night Lord, use Raven Guard, etc. Either or Cawl just goes, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. Are there any examples of benevolent warp entities aiding humanity, not including the Legion of the Damned, Living Saints, and the Solar Priest? Yes, Isha. Because when Isha was captured by Nurgle and placed in her cage, she's been whispering the secrets on how to cure his various diseases to all the races in the galaxy, not just the Eldari. So because she's been aiding all the races throughout the galaxy, this by extension means she's been aiding humanity. And that concludes this edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Until next time, this has been Remlays from 40k Theories, and Merry Christmas!